Well, folks, Keith Baldwin, who you've seen before, Keith Baldwin is a career revitalization coach who helps others fully engage with their work so that they can find meaning and monetary rewards throughout their daily endeavors. After experiencing intense job dissatisfaction many years ago, Keith began studying elements of career satisfaction and engagement. This led to studies in motivation, mentoring, and career coaching. Along the way, Keith completed a Master in Adult Education degree with an emphasis in human resource development and leadership. He received the Distinguished Toastmaster Award from Toastmasters International and numerous insurance designations, including Chartered Financial Consultant, Chartered Life Underwriter, and Chartered Property Casualty Underwriter. In today's presentation, Keith will share tips for revitalizing your career and your life. Please help me welcome Keith Baldwin.
Weren't our speakers awesome today? I think a round of applause for all of our speakers. And I have so many notes, but there are just a couple points I wanted to hit. Recently, the concept of 7 billion people on the planet, and how can we make an impact in our sphere of influence? How can we make an impact? I like the idea of take a class and teach a class. We keep learning, and no matter what it is, driving to speaking to everything, take a class, teach a class. Be of service. That came up several times, I noticed today. Be prepared, be open, and say yes. I actually teach a webinar called Yes Energy, and the idea is say yes and figure out how. But I love Kaleem's yes. Yield to yourself, or yield to self, embrace excellence, and sacred service. So again, being of service. And then we heard about prayer, and that I just love that poem because I'm, am I doing this right? So that was awesome. Just talk to God, talk to Spirit. Embrace the courage to change, and there was some talk about we have to take action, and then focus on strengths. Those are just a couple of the notes that I made. It's one of those things that I wish that I had ran across 20 years ago, but perhaps if I had, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. That idea of focusing on strength, to me, reminds me of the concept that, I think we all have a calling. I remember when my son Chris was, he's probably like 5, and we went out for a walk, and there's a brand new softball in the woods. And he said, "Dad, can I keep that?" And we look around, there's nobody around. So I said, "Yeah, okay, somebody lost it, so you can have it." So we get back home, and I don't know, I go in the kitchen or something, and I'm doing some work, and all of a sudden, it's really quiet. And for those of you with kids, when you got a 5-year-old boy and it's quiet in the house, I got a little nervous. I'm, Chris, where are you? Chris. I go out in the garage, and Chris is sitting on the floor with a little penknife out of my toolbox, cutting the stitching off the softball. And I immediately went into my dad lecture mode. It's like, what are you doing? That was a brand new softball, and you've ruined it now. What do you think? You're not supposed to be playing with my knives. What were you thinking, Chris? You know better than that. And he's just sitting on the floor with these little crocodile tears starting to pour down. And he said, I just wanted to see how it worked. And I went, oh, stupid dad. I think Kaleem mentioned earlier that part of being a parent is all those times we go, stupid dad. And so I sat down on the floor, and we cut it open until we got down into that little kernel inside, and and he could see how it worked. And Chris likes taking things apart. When I was in high school, my very first computer, get this, an 8-gig hard drive. It was about $2,500. I come home from work. Chris got home from high school a little bit earlier than me. It's in pieces on the floor. And I'm freaking out a little bit, but I try to say, well, what's going on? And he says, I just want to see how it worked out. I'll put it together. And he put it together. And then he went on to become, and when he joined the Marines, he started working on telecommunications equipment, and now he's a project manager working with GCI. And so, that was at an early age. And so I really believe in my heart that we all have this calling. The problem is, by the time we get through the school system and our friends and the environment, that sometimes we lose faith in that calling. Carol Dweck wrote this, D-W-E-C-K, wrote this great book called Mindset. And they've done studies starting like preschool all the way through retirees that pretty much all of us have varying degrees of two mindsets. And one's a fixed mindset and one's a growth mindset. And those with a fixed mindset believe that we just have certain gifts. I have certain things I can do, and so that's where I'm going to stay, is I'm going to do these things that I'm good at. So if I'm good at math, but I'm not so great at science, I'm going to avoid science. And so people believe that they can't take that next step. So even if they have a calling in their heart, if they've tried it once and didn't go well, they probably won't go back. People with a growth mindset, though, don't tie quite as much ego to failure. I even hate that word failure, but with growth mindset, all of life is an experience. That if they want to try something, they try it. And if it bombs, they go, oh, interesting, what, it didn't work, what can I learn from this? Okay, so here's how I'm going to do it next time. And so instead of having a fixed mindset that we can't grow out of it, growth mindset people, truly believe that all of life is a lesson, and we can continually grow. And so a lot of what we've heard this morning really emphasized the growth mindset, that we really are capable of doing whatever we want. It's just a matter of identifying that calling, that purpose that we have, and what we want to do, and then taking those risks. Which kind of leads me to my next area. I think it was Don that mentioned taking action. There are times that we're going to have that fear thing pop up. That for me, it was public speaking. For some reason, when I went through my midlife crisis, I was terrified of speaking in public, but for some reason, I wanted to speak in public. And so, yeah. I mean, here's how terrified I was. I drove up to my first Toastmaster meeting, turned off the truck, looked inside, started my truck up, and drove away. Well, as I was trying to work through that process, and I joined Toastmasters and started speaking more, I was still really nervous of speaking. I started doing something called purposeful risk. Whenever I would travel on business, I'd go to, I told you about the karaoke experience this morning. Well, I would go to karaoke bars and sign up as soon as I got there, before I had any liquid encouragement, and I'd be terrified, but I'd get up and sing. I had another time, Cindy had earned a sales trip, a bonus trip, and her bosses took us to this awesome Club Med. And our host name was Tarzan. Really, Tarzan. And ladies, he looked like Tarzan. Long, curly blonde hair, pumped up biceps, and pretty much everything else. I looked at Cindy and I said, really, Tarzan? Cindy said, me like Tarzan. Did you see those abs? And I'm like, thanks, honey. I mean, he couldn't quite get my name right, so he called me Keat. So I'm laying by the pool, and Tarzan yells, Keat, Keat, come play water polo. I said, no, thanks, Tarzan. Keat, you come play water polo, be on Tarzan team. I said, no. And he starts going, Keat, Keat, Keat. And Cindy goes, come on, Keat, go play water polo. Jane, watch. Yeah. I know who she'll be watching. Well, Tarzan comes running up to me one afternoon and says, Keat, you be in Tarzan floor show. I said, oh, no, thanks. He says, no, Keat, you be in floor show. It'd be fun. I thought, well, purposeful risk. If I can be in a floor show, So I said, okay, yeah, I'll be in the floor show. So I show up that night, and it's pretty surprised. About 100 people are like pouring in. And Cindy and her bosses sat up front. And Tarzan comes running up to me with his bag and said, Keat, here's your costume. And I open it up, and it's like a pink boa, a tube top, and a mini dress, a white mini dress, and high heels. I said, Tarzan, it's a dress. He goes, yeah, Keat, you be Lady Tarzan. I said, no, Tarzan. I thought I was going to be, Tarzan. He goes, no, Keat, this be funny. You be girl Tarzan, like Jane. I'm like, do I look like Jane? Bottom line is, walking in heels is a lot harder than it looks. The very next time I was at a speaking class that Cindy and I had gone to, and I was pretty nervous because there's like 20 people. They're going to record the whole thing, and it was speech coaches. They're going to take us back in a private room and give us some coaching. And I started getting nervous, and I thought, you just wore a dress in front of 100 people. I mean, how bad can this be? So think about some of the things we just talked about, the calling. What's burning in your heart? What is it? What would you do if you knew you could not fail? If you knew you could succeed, you would succeed no matter what. What would you do? And most likely, once you do that, you're going to find some areas that are going to be uncomfortable. Figure out how to step into those areas. There's that great thing that shows up on Facebook every now and then that shows your comfort zone in a circle, and then a really big circle beside it saying all growth. So really, the whole idea is we have to continue to step out of our comfort zones. Really, that whole idea of fear is that false evidence appearing real. That oftentimes we think we have something that's making us nervous, and we start projecting negative things that may happen before they even happen, and we start getting freaked out before we even do it. So it's only false evidence appearing real. And with a growth mindset, we just step into it. It may be scary, but once we start doing it, we get more comfortable with it. And the more we do it, the more comfortable we get. So purposeful risk-seeking. And then kind of the final piece I'd like to talk about a little bit is intentional practice. There's been a lot written on this. They've done some studies of like major violinists and chess players, and they've come out with this thing called the 10,000-hour rule, that on average, these maestros with violin and the chess masters and people of that caliber, when they go back starting with their childhood through their development, they found out that on average they have about 10,000 hours. Now, I know that sounds intimidating when we're starting out, but get this. How much time do you think the average person spends on their self-development? Very little. There are these statistics that after high school, it's something like 5% of people continue to read. It's really low. And so when we think about the 10,000-hour rule, as far as competing in the marketplace and really being of value in the marketplace, 500 hours is more than most people are putting into the personal development. And by us doing that, we also can inspire other people to focus on their personal development. So I encourage everybody to think about that. What's the calling? What's the areas that you can step into that purposeful risk? And think about the fear. I mean, is the fear real? I have this friend I used to ride bike with, and Trig, and Trig and I one time were riding up on the hillside, and we started climbing the hill, and all of a sudden I heard this whoosh right beside us. Boy, the hair on the back of my neck, that's the only place I have hair now, like stood up, and we start riding up the hill. I know you're not supposed to run when you have a bear encounter, but my brain wasn't working. We go riding up the hill, we can hear something crashing through the woods, and Trig yells, it's a bear, it's still coming. So we dump our bikes, and Trig's trying to get the bear spray out, and he's like, I can't get it out. And then this brown bear just burst through the woods about 25 feet from us, heading straight towards us. And I just stood there. And then it turned 90 degrees, kind of ran between our bikes and disappeared into the woods. I stood there, my heart like really pounding, and Trig said, you want to keep riding? I said, well, no. My goal is to get my heart rate up. That's been done. So the reason I kind of circle back around to the idea of fear is that I think our fears were developed over centuries, and they are meant to be of value to us. But the problem is now we sometimes let those into life where they don't belong. So best of luck to everybody. Find that calling. Find areas to step into risk. And remember that fear is just false evidence appearing real. And then my final piece, I'd like to just share a quote that I want to read this because I want to make sure I have it exactly right. And I apologize, I don't have the author's name, but I have this hanging up on my desk at home. It's start by doing what's necessary, then do what's possible, and soon you'll be doing the impossible. So thank you.